We have talked quite extensively about various steels and hardening and tempering junkyard steels and making tools out of this and making tools out of that. We took a trip to the steel yard to buy mild steel, which is what I use for the vast majority of my regular work, but not for making tools. Not everybody has the same availability of secondhand, salvaged, junkyard, scrap, however you want to term it. It's all the same stuff. It's stuff that is not brand new, known quantity steel. If it's remnants from someplace that knows exactly what it is and it's new, it's not the same as salvaged material. Salvaged material always has that unknown. Not everybody has sucker rod, which, by the way, is the rod that goes on a jack pump that runs an oil well, or perhaps water wells. I'm not sure exactly what all kind of wells they use, but if you see those wells moving up and down like a big bird dipping its head in the water, this is what's attached to it, and it goes down on the ground to operate the actual pump part. So that answers the question what sucker rod is. Probably poorly, but it answers it. Most of you can probably find various coil springs from automotive sources. Just about every place that has a car probably has coil springs and leaf springs and things like that. Agricultural stuff, you got to be in an area that's got some agricultural scrap. Who knows what this came off of, some sort of big piece of farm equipment. Just all sorts of stuff, and your availability in your area is going to be different than mine. I can't really talk too much about a lot of the steels that you're going to find, and you may not be able to find all the steels that I can talk about because I've used them. So what does that leave us? That leaves us with new steel, new tool steels or alloy steels or spring steels that suit our purposes, that are a known factor and a known quality. We talked the other day about a failure because I was using salvaged steel. Whether that happened because I got my heat treat process a little bit off from what I thought it should have been after doing the test work, or whether it was because the steel was pre-stressed, it's hard to say, but that's part of the risk of using salvaged steels. I'll still use salvaged steels, and so will you, I know that. But if you want guaranteed results, if you want to know what you're working with, you need new steel. Where do you get new steel? I have to mail order most of mine. I don't have any place in town that I can just go buy it. So let's go take a trip to the computer, and I will show you kind of what I'm looking for. And again, the websites you choose to use might be different in your area. If you're in a different country, you probably don't want to order from U.S. steel mills. But this stuff is available worldwide in some form or another, and you just have to look for it. So let's go see what we can find on the computer. Well, we're in for the shop for the day, and I thought we would get into the computer and take a look at some of what I can find in my searches for tool steels and alloy steels and spring steels, because those things are technically different steels, especially when you're looking for them. We may use them all somewhat interchangeably, but the suppliers and the dealers do not. They list them as separate items, so you need to kind of know what you're looking for. So let's take a look in the computer and see what we can find. Okay, well, here we are in the computer, and I think the first thing that I want to do is actually answer the question of what is sucker rod a little bit better. I just put what is sucker rod in Google, so if you want more information you could probably do that, and Wikipedia will explain it to you, but we'll just go to the picture because pictures are nice and easy. And here we have this very nice diagram that shows the well on the ground, and this black line is the sucker rod that goes all the way down to the actual pump, and this is where the pump action in a well occurs. And this is in an oil well. I understand that sucker rod can be used in other kinds of wells, so you might find it in water wells, and if you've got a windmill type well in your area, that might be using sucker rod, so it may be available even if you're not in oil country. Let's look for sucker rod steel chart under images, and there it is right there. And that is in Blade Forums. And I will put a link to this in the description, or at least I'll try to. I forget half the time when I try to do these links. I mean well when I make the video, but then I miss it later. But here's the chart. And it talks about the different markings on the sucker rod knuckles and what the different steels are. So there are a lot of different possible steels. Some of them are nice hardenable steels, and some of them are not so hardenable. So, finding tool steels. There's a lot of places to look. I mentioned that I look quite often at Mcmaster Carr. Mcmaster Carr is an industrial supplier. I'm not getting anything from them for recommending them. I just find them very handy, and their website is very easy to use at www.mcmaster.com. And you might have to set up an account to order from them. I'm not sure. I've been using them for so long I don't remember. But if I want to look for a specific type of steel, let's say I'm looking for 4140 to make a simple drift for an axe out of, I just put 4140 steel in their search engine, and it comes up with a whole bunch of options for 4140 steels. Probably I'm going to want a piece of flat because it's quite often easy to work with. And I can scroll down the left side over here, and I can decide, well, I'm going to want my drift about 3/4 of an inch thick when I'm finished. So I'm going to come down and I'm going to see what they've got for a 3/4 inch thick piece of 4140. And I'm going to want my drift about 2 inches wide maybe when I'm done. So I find 2 inches, and this helps me narrow it down really fast. And because I like to just stock up on things like this and have extras, I'm going to buy a 3-foot piece of it. And this tells me now what they have. This is their list of that size, and that's actually quite a bit there. I don't really want precision ground stuff, so let's just go to the ground, and that's going to narrow it down again. Yep, for some reason, it's giving me a much bigger chart here. There we go. We're back to 4140. Over here on the far left, it's actually giving me all their steels in that size. So it hadn't narrowed it down as much as I wanted it to. But there's only one thing under 4140 for this size. And it would cost me $85 to buy a piece of 4140, 3/4 inches thick, 2 inches wide. And this tells you pretty much what they have in rectangular steels, 4140 A2. But if I'd rather have S7 in that same size, I can come look at S7 and find it in a 3/4 inch if they've got it. 3/4 inch by 2. It's considerably more expensive. For a 3-foot piece, it's going to cost $137. But you can just go through here and look at stuff. If you're looking for some of the simpler steels, you actually have to look for spring steel. It doesn't come up in the same place some of the other stuff does. Here you can find 1065, 1075, 1080, 1095, and 5160. We talk about 5160 for axe blades quite often. So 5160 and 1/4 inch thick, 1.25 inches wide is good for making axe bits. A 3-foot piece of that is only $20. It's also a good size for a lot of big knives if you're a knife maker. So that's Mcmaster Carr, and they've got everything, not just steels. If you need grinding wheels, nuts, bolts, washers, I find all sorts of stuff from Mcmaster Carr. Another very popular place to buy steel is New Jersey Steel Baron. And that's NewJerseySteelBaron.com. The best place to go here is look at their selection. You can find high carbon steel or tool steel. They have listed separate. There may be some crossover. Let's see what they have in high carbon steel. They have 1045, 1075, 1084, 1095, 5160. So let's see what they've got for 5160.
in 1/4 inch by 1 1/4 inch. This would be a 4-foot piece. It's out of stock, $24. So that's very comparable to Mcmaster Carr, but perhaps a little bit better price. Mcmaster Carr had it in stock, and Mcmaster Carr usually ships next day, at least for me. And that might be because I've been buying from them for so long, but it's hard to say. I think they do that for pretty much everybody. They get such a good deal at FedEx. Now what about tool steels? What do they have? What do they call tool steel? A2, D2, L6, O1, W1, W2. I use a lot of W1. I like it for simple projects. It's also very good for axe blades. They don't have it in a 1/4 inch thick. This is a 3/8 thick piece. And it's only available in square, apparently. So their selection is a little bit more limited in that. And it's completely unavailable, not just out of stock. But I'm not seeing things like S7, and I use a lot of S7. So they don't necessarily have that at the New Jersey Steel Baron, but they do have quite a bit of stuff. And you may have to, if you've got particular steels you really like, you may have to go more than one place to find them. Admiral Steel has a fairly good selection, but it can be hard to find exactly what you're after. Their website is not as convenient as some of the others. If we go here to spring strip and alloy steels, and we want to look at, how about 1095 again? We find a sheet on it. We don't find any prices, and we don't find any instructions on how to order. So you would have to email them to ask them. But if you come down here to specialty blade steels, and you come into the 1095 is a blade steel. Oh, here we go. Right up here under blade steels, you can find the catalog price list. And this will give you the link to some of their blade steels. And you just have to scroll down until you find the chart that has the 5160. Again, not as convenient a website as New Jersey Steel Baron or Mcmaster Carr's website. Did I say 5160? I meant 1095, although this will have 5162. And you can find a price list to look at a 1/4 inch piece of 1095, which they don't have. So let's go back up to 1/8 inch. Nope. They have 5/32. So some of this is not real specific. You have to look around. You can't be absolutely sure what they're going to find here. There's 5160 and a 20-foot bar. Holy cow. I wonder if they have 5160 not in a 20-foot bar. Seems like I've bought it from them before, but I'm not seeing it. Right off. But anyways, Admiral Steel is another source. They have a lot of stuff. It's just a little bit harder to narrow down. And then there's Speedy Metals. Speedy Metals has a fair amount of stuff. I was actually looking here at some H13, which is outrageously expensive from Mcmaster Carr, but I can buy a 3/4 inch bar of this here that is very suitable for making lots of good punches and chisels. It's a real good hot work steel. A bit hard to deal with sometimes because it has some special heat treat properties, but it's only $25 for a 3-foot piece. That's an excellent price. Now let's look at some of their alloy steels in a flat bar. This is where you would probably find the 4140 for making your drift if they have it. Yep, there it is, grade 4140. And if you want 3/4 inch thick by 2 inch wide, like we were looking at earlier. You can come down here, 3/4 by 2. Click on that. And if you were to buy a 3-foot piece, it would be $71. So a little bit less than Mcmaster Carr wanted, but not a whole lot less. And I'm not sure what their shipping would be. So Speedy Metals is also a good place. And there are going to be lots of others. You can just put what you want to buy in the search engine and search for it. $41.40 alloy steel would be a good search for that. You got Hudson Steels, online metals sales, steelforge.com. I've never even heard of them. But there's a lot of places on here. So do this in your area. Google tends to target the area that you're in if it can. So if you're in another part of the world, it's probably not going to give you all these U.S. suppliers. If you're in Australia, it's going to give you the Australian suppliers. But we can put in Australia, which I'll probably misspell. Whoa, can't even type right. It's getting late in the evening. 4140 steel plate supplier in Australia. 4140 high tensile steel. Is that Australia? Yep. Place called Interloy. And it looks like they have that. So these places are available around the world. You just have to search for them, and you may have to ship it. And it may be a little bit more expensive. It may also be called something different in your part of the world. There are some different standards that are similar steels, but they don't go by the same names as they do here in the U.S. So I might be confusing you a little bit using some of these names. But the last place to look, and this can be sometimes the cheapest, is this place called eBay. And where you want to go look, let me just click on one here. And if you just kind of randomly search for tool steels and bring something up, it'll bring up the category: business, industrial, manufacturing, raw materials, metals, and alloys. And that's kind of where you want to be searching. Pull that up, put in what you're after, and then let's see what they've got. They have 4,140 results for 4140 under metals and alloys in the industrial section. Here's a piece 1/2 by 1.5, not big enough for the drift we were talking about, 3 feet long, $79. Not a very good deal. There's a 3/4 by 3, 6 feet long, $300. That's not a very good deal either. Sometimes you get great deals, but it pays to shop around before you go to eBay just to find out. 3/4 by 1, $92. This stuff's all pretty much the same prices as the other dealers. You're not getting a good deal on this stuff. But sometimes you can find something like this. Here's a whole bunch of it, free shipping, $58. It's a buy it now. Who knows what all is in there. Looks like 3/4 by 2 7/8, 3 5/8. That'd make a nice drift. 1.5 by 2 1/4. There's all sorts of stuff in here you could use for some handy stuff. I'm not necessarily recommending you buy that. I'm just saying that if you look, you might be pleasantly surprised at some point. I've purchased quite a bit from eBay of unusual steels in big chunks for special projects. Here's a 4140 round. Looks like 3-inch OD, 2-inch ID pipe, so it's a 1/2 inch wall steel tubing, 52 inches long. If you needed a big piece of hardenable steel tubing, that might do you. But that's just a look at some of this stuff. Now, what if you were looking for H13? I talked about it being really expensive at Mcmaster Carr. Yep, why does it come up with headlights? I don't want headlights. H13, 1.5" diameter, 12 inches long, $30. It's not bad price. 1-inch square stock, that'd make some nice punches and steels. It's only 10 inches long though. Yeah, I think that other place we looked at had better prices on H13. You just never know what you find, and you just have to search. I can't find all this material for everybody out there. Sometimes you just have to get online and go look yourself. It might take a hunt. It might take asking people in your area, asking machine shops, welding shops. Find other blacksmiths. They'll know where they found stuff before. But new tool steel is available out there. Well, that's just a quick look at some of what might be available online. Like I say, you really need to look in your area and use a search engine that's kind of familiar with your part of the world. Obviously, sitting in the U.S., searching on Google, it's searching U.S. suppliers. If you're searching somewhere else, it's probably going to search suppliers a little bit closer to you than the U.S. ones, I hope. But if you put your country or region name or city in, it will narrow things down a little bit. Even when I was living in Denver, I had trouble finding tool steels locally and still found it easier to mail order a lot of stuff. I don't use that much of it. I mean, I use a fair amount, but it's not like I'm ordering a truckload at a time. I'm ordering something that will ship FedEx or UPS or US Mail in most cases, and it just isn't that big a deal to go ahead and pay the shipping. Even buying a $100 piece of tool steel that's going to make 4 or 5, 6 tools in the long run is pretty good economy because it's good known steel, it makes good tools, I know what I'm getting, and if it's something for sale, the materials cost is rolled into the product. If it's a tool for me, then it's worth it to make good tools. So it's just something to consider. There's used steels, salvaged steels, secondhand steels. Sometimes you can get remnants, but sometimes you got to buy new, and for most of us, the internet is the place to go because it's really convenient. And most of this is available worldwide if you're willing to pay the shipping. So I hope that helps. Give it a thumbs up. Love it if you'd hit that subscribe button. Make some time, get out to the shop, make something. Search the internet a little bit later on and see what you can find for tool steels in your area. But do stay safe, do wear your safety glasses, and we'll see you for the next one.